And we are recording. Welcome, welcome, Sir Thomas Benjamin Wild Esquire to the channel.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm very well. Just
Good.
recovering from a busy Christmas of travelling across the country, um, trying to avoid the train strikes that are happening over here at the moment.
I heard
Um,
that.
so
I
yeah,
heard that they're crazy over there.
yeah. I mean, I support striking workers because I think actually, give them a give them a raise. It's
Yeah,
am I okay? Am I okay swearing?
yeah,
I didn't check that with you.
yeah. You're fine. You're fine. My son isn't old enough to watch this, so go for it.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, but we managed to navigate that and actually had a quite a nice Christmas actually. So,
Yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
awesome. That's good to hear, man. Any crazy plans for the new year?
No, we're not doing any. We're not doing New Year's Eve particularly this year, but we are having people over on New Year's Day. We have a
Okay.
nice dinner on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
But I get to this stage in the year, and I've drunk too much alcohol, and you're trying to avoid the
Yeah.
heartburn. Because even if I wanted to carry on drinking on Christmas Day, we absolutely hammered it on Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
and then Christmas Day we woke up and we were all a little bit yeah,
Like
feeling
groggy.
worse for wear. And then I had a few had you eat so much food and then you
It's
end up
it's a whole train wreck of celebration. You know, it's just like it's a cause and effect. It's a constant loop that you can
yeah,
never get out of. And I
yeah.
mean, at this point, my wife and I are like, we're just thinking, where are we going to celebrate New Year's? Like probably in the living room.
And
Probably,
you feel obliged to do everything that everybody wants to do as well. And there's all these
yeah,
expectations on you.
yeah.
Um,
And so I think this year we're just like dialing it back. You know, I feel like we're dialing it back, playing it safe. But
New
yeah,
Year,
man, no, that's
I've never had a New Year that's lived up to the expectations that I've had for it when I've been wanting to go out and do all of those kind of things.
it's always
Um,
stressful.
and so we just started going. Do you know what? We'll sit and watch the fireworks from the bedroom and then go to sleep.
There you go. I think that's the best place to do it because I mean, depends on how hard you party on Christmas proper,
Yeah,
Christmas Eve. That dictates what you're doing
yeah,
on
for the
New
rest of the
Year's.
week.
You know, it's kind of like if you don't go hard on Christmas, you definitely go hard on New Year's.
Yeah, or you could just avoid both of it and just
Or
have
you
a
go
nice
well, yeah,
rest.
avoid both. You could you can definitely do that. But all right, man. Well, listen. First and foremost, I do appreciate you being on our channel.
That's
I
absolutely my pleasure. I have been watching your videos, Embrace the Suck 21. I've got a little bit addicted to watching reaction videos of things at
yeah,
the moment, particularly Americans reacting to British
it's
comedy, humour, and that kind of thing. It's quite joyous watching people watching those things for the first time. To be fair,
it's so I see the appeal of it because it's something that's like you guys would those across the pond would consider nostalgic and we're just finding this out and I'm like, oh my goodness, because we're so insulated over here where it's always we don't know what's over there across the pond
yeah,
in a
and we
very
get so much of your TV and films and stuff over here that it's
well, yeah. I feel like we mass produce it and we just send it out everywhere. And we bombard everyone else with our stuff and we don't have enough influx of others.
yeah.
So,
So
but
yeah, it's quite interesting, and it's quite interesting because as a cultural thing as well is thinking about all of the nuances and stuff that you got. I've noticed you guys have started picking up on now and kind of
yeah,
referencing back to the other things that you've seen, which is
yeah.
something that we all over here
Well,
do
it's
automatically.
just it's one thing to how does one truly soak in someone else's culture, without being immersed or going over.
Yeah,
And this the I guess the speed up, I guess the expedited lane would be immerse yourself in music, comedy, and because that defines a huge part of culture.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think so. I definitely think
And
so.
but I appreciate you're watching us, man. Appreciate you watching us. I Spencer knew about you a long time ago, and he was like, "Did you hear about this guy?" I was like, "What?" what guy? And then you ended up singing one of probably my anthem. Like that's a great song. Like right now, I would say if I had to, it's impossible to pick a favorite. But the two songs that are flip flopping are "No More Fucks to Give" and "Well This Is Shit."
Yeah,
That
the two
that
sweary ones.
but still the best because it's like I for the longest time in life I was like I wish there was someone that could vocalize what I'm feeling. And you took it and you ran with it. And I was like, I applaud you. So you
um,
have me forever on your team.
there was quite an interesting article I read this year from it was actually Hindustan Times, so it's an Indian paper, and they'd written an article about. They described it as disgruntled ditties, which I just think is the perfect. So it might even be the name of my fourth album because it sums up exactly what I do.
That's so good. That's so good. Oh, that's such a good title for an album.
Because I struggle to when people ask me, "Oh, how do you describe your style of music?" I really do struggle to kind of point a finger at it because it's kind of singer songwriter, it's comedy, but I don't think I'm that funny in general, so I don't consider myself comedy necessarily. Sing along music, but disgruntled ditties, I think, was the the
That
perfect
just
summation.
carve out your niche. And that tackles one of the other questions I had. It's like, what because I couldn't for the life of me figure out the genres. Like
Yeah,
like a nostalgic sound, which is very catchy, and you definitely want to sing along once you learn the words.
but this is it. So what I've always wanted, I've always enjoyed is going along to a show and knowing all the words to the songs that are being sung on stage, everybody raucously singing them along.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's a real kind of sense of unity in that.
Yes.
Um, I like to feel involved when I go and see live music. I don't just
Yes.
like to stand back and kind of watch. I mean, that has its time and its place, but
Yeah.
I like to kind of get involved and feel involved as an audience member. And so that's something I've always tried to do. Um, and I guess I've been embraced by various different communities within kind of music communities. So the steampunk community have really kind of bought into
Oh,
what I do. So I do a lot of steampunk shows. I don't know if you're aware of that community at all.
I
Um,
mean, I know they exist. I know
yeah,
that's a genre of like photo filter. Like I know that.
yeah.
That's it.
So there's a whole community of that of people that
Yes.
dress up in kind of cogs and imagined it basically kind of 1800s imagined future.
Got
If
it.
you think of the best way I can describe it to anybody is if you've ever seen Back to the Future 3,
Oh, the West one?
the Western one,
Yes.
and Wild Wild West does it very well as well. So the film with
Yes.
Will
Okay.
Smith in.
Wild Wild
Um,
West.
so that style is very kind of popular, and they kind of there's lots of groups over in the UK that do that. I think it's a big scene in America as well.
I think so
Um,
too, now that you mention it. You know?
and then so they've kind of been embraced by them and done lots of shows with them. I've started being embraced by the folk community because I think they see
Yeah.
what I do as kind of quite folky as well. And yeah, there's definitely those influences there. Um,
Well, once
and
you
then
whip out the
also,
banjo lady, like that's you're in. Like you're kind
but
of
but I started off on I guess what you'd call the vintage reenactor scene over here in the
okay.
UK. Which they do a lot of kind of 20s, 30s, 40s nostalgia events where they have kind of big bands play. It's all very dancey, lots of people kind of doing proper swing dancing,
Okay.
um, jiving, and all those kind of things. Um, and that's where it all started for me because I got asked to host a show um,
Very cool.
because the host had dropped out last minute, and so I kind of exhausted my limited number of jokes that I could do
Yeah.
on a stage.
So
They
awesome.
they asked me back, um, and so I thought it'd be a lot easier just to sing some songs as well as
Yeah.
kind of doing the hosting. So I
That's how you broke through?
grabbed the ukulele, and started bashing out some
Yeah,
covers
I
on
was
it.
and that's kind of like so listen, to be honest, I have all these questions down. You're a very interesting person. I'm like, you know what? And we'll just if we get to them, we get to them.
Yeah,
I don't care. You know, but So the ukulele was the afterthought. You
Yeah.
never went in full uke.
No, no, and actually, this is the interesting thing because there's a whole uke scene, a whole ukulele scene, which I wasn't aware of until I started kind of having people listening to my music. Um, but it was never the thinking behind it was I played guitar, so I do play guitar in a limited capacity,
Got
and
it.
I thought if I play some songs at a vintage event, guitar doesn't really feel kind of like a vintagey instrument, but
Okay.
the ukulele has the benefit um, of sounding quite classic and kind of vintagey, but also because I'm 6'3", it looks hilarious because I'm a
Yeah.
giant man and it's a tiny instrument. And that was literally the cheap gag, the cheap laugh was what I was going for initially. Um, and then I started kind of looking at banjolales. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're aware of Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer. Have you ever come across him?
Who was that?
Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer.
No.
So I
I've
would
not
suggest
yet
that you
come across him.
go and have a which. So he spawned this whole genre of music known as chap hop,
Huh.
which is kind of rap and hip hop music, but sung in a very kind of British accent.
Okay.
And it's very satirical. It's not to be taken seriously at all. But actually, he's a really good artist. I've actually got to know him quite well and become quite good friends with him
That's
now.
awesome.
But so there was the influence there. So I thought, okay, banjolele, that looks a lot nicer than a ukulele. And actually, everyone plays ukuleles at the moment. So I then started playing banjolele. It just looked nicer. So
Yeah.
initially, it was kind of for comedy effect, and then I got a banjolele because it looked nicer.
Well, that's I'm telling you, man, it worked because let's just be honest. Let me tip my non-tweed hat to you, good sir. Um, the the video, the No More Fucks to Give in the store, like you couldn't have the I guess the suit shop,
Yeah, yeah.
you
So
couldn't have picked a better backdrop. Like that's just so many things were like you saw it for a little bit and then you had to click replay to understand. You know, I'm just because it took us a little, it took me more than one watch.
yeah.
And I was just like, this man, this giant of a man is in a suit shop playing to people right on some chairs in I don't know what he's strumming. I love the song and it's so wild. It like worked perfectly. And what was that place?
So here's the story. So I used to work in a college until about 2 years ago. I taught media production in a college. Um, and at the college, there's also a music department that has music studios. And we're encouraged to, as staff, to develop our skills over the summer periods when students aren't in. There's these kind of really, quite nice music studios free there. And myself and a colleague went, "Do you know what? Let's record an album because I'd like to know how to record music and sound better." And he was kind of just flexing his muscles with that stuff. So we recorded an album over the course of 2 summers.
Okay.
And actually, that No More Fucks was the last song that I wrote and recorded for it. Um, and so we created this album, and I wanted to do an album launch for it. Um, with bearing in mind that I didn't have any kind of audience really, other than the people that came to the little kind of shows that I'd
Yeah.
been performing at. Um, and so I thought, you know, it might be quite good fun media production to do a live stream of it. So we set up an iPhone in the
Uh-huh.
middle of this shop. Well, I'll explain that in a second. But so yeah, thought live stream, um, and then I thought, so where are we going to do it? Because I can't pull an audience in of any great level. So I don't want to do it in a place where it feels really dead and kind of rubbish. And it just so happened that our friend had started working in this suit shop, which is owned by some other people that we know. Um, and they'd actually previously loaned me some suits to perform in at one of the vintage festivals.
Oh,
And so I just said,
nice.
"Do you mind if I come and set up in there and do a live stream from there?" And they were like, "No, great, brilliant, excellent." Um, And so it's a wedding hire shop essentially. Kind of they
Okay.
hire the suits and things like that out for weddings, and they sell other things in there. And so we set up in there. I brought the equipment across from the college because it was only just across the road,
Yeah.
and plonked a camera in the corner, thinking, do you know what? I'm going to use this and I can cut up the videos from this, um, so that I can pop them online, try and build a bit of an online audience.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we did that album launch, and I didn't really think about the camera placement either. You can see that there's a water bottle and
Yeah. I
and a
love it.
camera and a phone on the side there. And actually, just there's about 10 people in there,
Yeah.
but I just had like I stupidly kind of left the
Yeah, there's
two
two
of our
people
friends
right there in front of
two of
you.
our friends, yeah, right
Yeah.
at the front. But actually, it just makes it look like a really shit audience in there.
Just like
um,
he's planted those two people. Like it's nice.
so
But
there were more people there. There were
yeah.
more people there. So yeah, that's how it. It actually was we were looking for a place, and it was actually my partner's idea. My partner Sarah, who actually she's a headwear designer, um, and she did a lot of online marketing for some kind of local festivals.
Okay.
And she just went, well, why don't you ask the guys in the suit shop if you can perform in there? That would work really nice. You can wear one of their suits and brilliant. They'll love it. So yeah, I did it. And yeah, and that's
The
it.
rest is history.
That's exactly it.
And then
And
did you
I
wake up?
can't help but kick myself that I didn't put the camera in a better position in
This is,
there.
but this is why it's like it was genius because if you had put it in the right
Yeah,
place, who knows?
yeah, exactly.
You know?
I don't know what part of the appeal was, and actually when it started kind of getting a little bit more, it started going a little bit more crazy. I did ask I asked anybody who was kind of resharing it, their own versions of it, to just crop the video so that because actually one of the girls at the front did actually get recognised in dating apps. Um, the girl in the video. So, so it was kind of like, okay, I don't. If that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, do you mind just cropping around it? So you see a lot of cropped versions of it because
Got it.
yeah,
Got it. Well, no, it's just so it was one of those things you wake up one night and you're like, you look at your phone and you have millions of
well,
you're like,
it
what?
was interesting because after a few days, I got about 2,000 views on it, and I was quite excited by that.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened. Suddenly, just one night, myself and Lee, who was my producer, who's the guy I was working with at college, and has also produced all my other albums. We were just like, oh, it's got 100,000. It's got
Like
200,000.
what?
And then the students of my college started clocking onto it as well, and started noticing that was happening.
I mean,
It hit 1 million on Facebook, and I was quite excited by that. And
that's crazy.
one of my students then turned around to me. The 16-year-olds, bless them, just turned around. Well, it's not 1 million on YouTube, is it?
But I mean, that was so you hit the million on Facebook before the million on.
Yeah. So the difficult thing is that I at that point it hadn't really taken off on YouTube, and because I didn't have the subscribers or the followers, I couldn't monetize it on YouTube
Mm,
at that point, and it took a little while to be able to do that. So actually, then Viral Hog got in contact to kind of monetize it and do all that kind of thing. So they've been monetizing it for me,
wow.
which and collecting royalties from everywhere else. So I wouldn't have been able to do that. I'm a little bit in two minds about whether that was the best idea, but at the time,
Yeah. No, you have to.
absolutely no idea that it
Yeah.
was going to go that crazy or that it was going to spawn. I thought it might be a flash in the pan and then kind of disappear off. And
No, but
so you kind
I'm
of
like super like it's one of those things where something that necessarily isn't intended to, let's say, primarily succeed right off the bat
yeah,
blows up.
yeah,
Uh, my friend and I, Spencer, we have something like that no intention of doing what we're doing, and it kind of just went.
yeah.
And
I
and
mean,
so
you've got kind of a decent following on YouTube now, haven't you?
it's crazy. It's crazy, but I like it over here. It's a little bit quieter over here on my side of the on my side of the YouTube world. So it's nice. Um, but yeah, man, no, I'm just super happy, super proud of you. You keep the one thing that draws me into your music is that you smile and you have a good time.
Yeah, you've
And
got to enjoy it. This is the thing.
but there's so many artists out there that are so jaded by so many different things that you just seem that the joy is out of their music.
I think also I've kind of managed to, I'm 42 now, and this has come to me at a point in life where I think I'm a little bit more clued in to how things work and and the way the world works. Because I know a lot of I've had record labels and various people coming in and saying, "Oh, we'd love to work with you," and they can't offer anything other than what I'm doing for
Yeah.
myself, and I get to keep all the money and stuff and have complete control over everything. So a
Yep.
big part of that happiness, I think, is maintaining that level of control and doing the things I'm comfortable with. I'm actually in quite a nice position now where I can choose the things that I want to do,
That's the best
um,
part.
and I
That's the
think that's
best
really
part.
important.
Yep.
And I think that's how you stay happy in this
Yeah.
game, really.
Yeah. But it's just another layer that brings you in is when you see someone, for me at least, like you see someone enjoying their art, sharing a piece of what you have inside you, like that is a huge pull.
One of the best shows I ever saw was at Glastonbury Festival one year in the dance. I'm not wasn't ever particularly into dance music, but I went along with a friend to watch a group called Lemon Jelly, who
Okay.
had a couple of hits back in the early 2000s or kind of late 90s, early 2000s. Um, and they just looked so happy to be there, and they were so excited, and it was radiating off of them. They were jumping about really excitedly, and there was just something really nice about that, and I really could that kind of
Yep.
stuck with me, and I thought, you know what, I want to enjoy myself when I'm
Yep.
performing. I don't want to feel like like it's a chore
And
for
that's
me to
like
go
the
do.
biggest thing. I think that if not only are you conveying lyrics, you're also conveying happiness
Yeah, it's
and
hard to.
joy.
Sometimes when you're stressed out, it is very much a slapped on smile. You have to
Yes,
kind of fake it
totally.
sometimes.
Totally. But when you're just saying this is shit, you're like, I have to listen to it in my truck, and I'm like, yeah, this is shit, but I love it. Like it's one of those smiles of agreement, you know. Just this, I'm silently, happily agreeing with every word you say, you know. So it works, and it's just
I
it's
also,
super.
I mean, the other thing I'm also quite careful about. I try not to be, although I am sometimes very kind of direct and very specific about what a thing's about. I might be writing about. I mean, well, this is shit was about kind of 2020. Really, that was kind of
Yeah,
my anthem for 2020. But I didn't want to kind of put anything into that song that would kind of tie it to that particular time
yeah,
because I think actually it's relevant to whatever time you're in, and
yeah.
you might be going through a shit situation for any number of reasons.
Yep.
Um, and actually, No More Fucks to Give was written as a little tune that we could whistle as we walked out of work meetings when we'd had stressful work meetings in
I
education.
love that, dude. I love that.
And
That's
it was the
great.
easiest song I've ever written.
It just came out. It
Yeah,
just
it just came out
flew out.
after a hideous work meeting one day. Um,
That's the way. That's the way to do it. But what 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 I love the most is your your how do I bring this back? You're poisoning pigeons in the park.
so that's a Tom Lehrer. Do you know? Have you come across Tom Lehrer at all?
No,
He's an American singer.
is he?
Yeah. So this right, Tom Lehrer. You've got to do some Tom Lehrer on Embrace the Suck. I
Okay,
think.
we'll do.
Um,
Just Tom Lara,
Tom
Lara.
Lehrer, Lehrer. So Tom Lehrer, Harvard professor,
Okay,
taught chemistry at Harvard, and also had a musical career.
okay.
Um, so he did Poison and Pigeons. You might have heard actually. He did the Table of Elements song, which is the tune to "I Am the Very Model of a Modern Major General," but with all the elements being kind of
I
sung.
think I've heard it, but I was not the big science guy.
Yeah.
So
No, that
like
was obviously fair.
once you start talking elements, I'm like, and this is
So
done. Yeah.
Tom Lehrer, it also he's 94, 95 now, I think, and he's got this whole back catalogue of songs that last year or the year before he just turned around and went, do you know what? It's all in the public domain now. Do what you want with them. You can cover songs, royalty free. Doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want with them. So actually, myself and Tom Carradine have got an album of Tom Lehrer Tom Lehrer songs planned at some point.
That's
But yeah,
great.
so Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, the Masochism Tango. He also does a song called the Masochism Tango. Um, what I'm trying to think of it. We will all go together when we go,
Okay.
which is about nuclear war.
Yeah.
But there is a jolliness in that that is very much influenced. And if he wasn't cool enough already, he's also credited with inventing the Jello shot.
Get out of here. Of course, a science teacher would have invented that. Awesome.
So yeah, you need to have a look at Tom Lehrer.
Oh my God, the
Um,
legend. Yes. Oh my goodness. But I just saw, because yesterday I just kind of wanted to immerse myself, you know, and I was like, that was you released that 6 years ago.
that was probably one of the first covers I think it's the first YouTube video that I put up actually.
Yeah.
And that was at the Headner's Vintage nightclub, which is where I started doing the hosting, and where I think that was probably the second show I'd done with the ukulele.
Oh my goodness. That's great, man. That's great. So, all right, I want to get to your Tom Carradine. How did that?
So Tom is a person who I knew from lots of the kind of the vintage scene, but the
Okay.
kind of reenact vintage scene. Um, we've got a local festival to us called Twinwood Festival, which is quite world renowned.
Okay.
It's the site. Do you know? Have you heard of Glenn Miller?
No, I don't.
Glenn Miller. So
I'm
he was a band leader from the 40s, American band leader.
okay.
He played the trombone. You'd recognise his music. It is kind of essentially
Really?
the music that kind of summarises that era.
Okay.
Um, so if you would know some
Glenn Miller.
Glenn Miller, and so the site he actually took off in a plane from the Twinwood site, which is just down the road from us, and disappeared over the English Channel. So his plane disappeared over the English Channel, and he was never seen again.
Oh,
Um, so actually, they run a festival every year, which started off as the Glenn Miller Festival, kind of playing lots of Glenn Miller music, but then evolved into the Twinwood Festival, which is 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's
that's
music,
kind of
dance, all of that kind of thing. And so Tom was a pianist there, and one night he got at the piano in the kind of bar on the site. They've got a kind of little pub thing
okay.
that had a piano in it, and just started playing sing along songs, and everyone started joining in, and it became a thing every year that Tom would do his sing along, and kind of would everyone would sing along with all those songs that everybody
Yeah.
knows, and he then started doing that as a thing. So he takes that around all around the UK
I think it's
now,
super awesome.
and was doing it all the way through lockdown as well. So he was doing a sing along a week all the way through lockdown.
The
Um, and so we've known each other. We've known each other for quite a few years, and then I think over lockdown, I think that was the first time I got in contact with him and just said, in fact, we did something like this because I was
yeah.
just trying to chat to people. So let's do an interview. So I did an interview with him, and then I asked if he didn't mind playing some piano on Well This Is Shit. That was the thing. So he
Yeah.
played the piano part for that. Did a few more piano bits for the other bits. And then someone had been watching his live streams, and they've been
Okay.
watching my live streams. Um, so and they said, look, you guys should do a show together. I'm going to put you in touch with this.
They were just like they were tired of you guys being separate. And they're like, just
Yeah.
come together.
So he kind of suggested that he got us in contact with this guy in Cambridge, And this was only this year, so we literally only did our first show together this year.
Oh man.
Um, and that's back in May. Um, so I went over to his house, um, and we practiced some songs together. Realised that actually we could do that fairly easily, and we didn't need to. The nice thing is we don't necessarily need to get together for a whole day to rehearse the songs. Um, as long as I learn them in the right key, he learns them in the right key. We then figure them out on the day, and so we've done a few shows now.
Well, that's
Um,
awesome.
but
That's
yeah, so
great.
it's just kind of been somebody that I've met through the
So,
various
because
things
he's
we've been doing.
he's the one I think you've done collaborations with really Tom and Scott Dunican. Am I
Scott Dunican, yeah.
Dunican? Yes.
Scott Dunican of the Bar Steward Sons of Val Dunican.
Yeah,
Now,
that's very lengthy. What is it? Scott Dunican and the Bard of what?
the Bar Steward,
The Bar Steward.
yeah, as opposed to bastard, the Bar Steward Sons
All right.
of Val Dunican. So, if you've never come
Valdunican,
Val Val, and then second word Dunican
which is his
Dunican.
last name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So so Val Dunican was an Irish singer, I think, from kind of the 60s. He's the kind of the sweater wearing, kind of singing songs for your grandma kind of chap.
Got it.
Um, and I think their whole thing was that Val Dunican had been touring the world and he'd slept with lots of women, and they were the Bar Steward Sons of Val Dunican. So that's their backstory.
I
And so
love that.
they all wear these sweaters, and they
Oh
do
my
parody
goodness.
songs. So they're a parody band.
Which
Um,
is yeah.
they're very very like British Northern Yorkshire, and so they.
Okay.
I guess you've come across Yorkshire comedians before.
I think so. Maybe. Spencer's the one with the knowledge.
Yeah,
He can pick up accents. I'm just here for the comedy. I'll try my hardest to get through
yeah.
the but
Um,
I don't maybe Yorkshire
but
comedians.
they are kind of they've got a massive live following, and actually, what's really impressive is every time he puts up a set of shows, they're sold out even like 9 months in advance a lot of the time. I'm
Really?
like, how the fuck are you doing this? Literally, trying to promote plug shows that
Yeah.
I've got coming up in like a week's time that I've only sold 50 tickets for, and he's like selling out, So we did a show back in Birmingham because I only met him this year. Um, we did a show up in Whitby,
Okay.
um, which is North Yorkshire, um, and yeah, it was a steampunk show. We got chatting there, and then that was really funny. Is that one of his parody songs?
Okay.
He did a version of. You've heard about the whole Boris Johnson thing during lockdown. Boris Johnson having parties while everybody else was
Yeah.
working and all this kind of stuff. So he did a version of "It's My Party" and I'll cry if I want to.
Okay.
Changed the lyrics to "It's his party and he'll lie if he wants to." Okay, and oh god, just explaining the layers of this now to someone over there is, and so
All right.
there's a chap called Steve Bray
Okay.
who stands outside Westminster every day with a boombox. He's massively anti Tory government. He's massively anti Brexit. So he's very kind of like thinks we should, and very, very vocal about it. And he has people that kind of sponsor him and things like that to just be a nuisance outside Parliament and kind of shout. And he blares kind of songs through over to the House of Parliament so that politicians can hear them. And at one point, he played "It's His Party and He'll Lie If He Wants to." And so Scott had shared that on Twitter. The fact that this guy, who's got quite a big Twitter following as well, had shared that. I then
Nice.
shared that because I was quite pleased that somebody I knew had been shared in that way.
Yeah.
And then somebody commented on it and said, "Oh, you should just stick to music. Don't do politics." And so we both very politely went in and didn't back down against this guy. And he eventually said, "Oh, okay, all right, whatever." When you come in to play a gig in Aldershot, I think it was, and it's just like, oh,
I
God.
love that.
And so then he said, "Look, do you want to?" Because he had started doing a live stream. Well, it wasn't. It's not a live stream actually. A show every week during lockdown.
Okay.
Scott Dunican's Big Neat In, where he'd been inviting guests on to play in a kind of TV series kind of format. So he invited me along, but we did a collaboration of Bat Out of Hell before that as well. So he said, "What song would you like to play together?" And I said, "I want to do Bat Out of Hell, but I want to do the full version of it."
Nice, nice. Oh,
Yeah, so we did that, and then while we were chatting for that, he said, "Let's do a show together."
so
So we organised a show in Birmingham.
it's amazing what that lockdown period brought out
Yeah.
of everyone.
We all had to get
Everyone,
creative. Everyone had to
everyone had
rest.
to. It's either go get creative or go mental. Like
Yes.
that's the only option. And it's just it's so cool that you have continued, like you've continued that, like you're not, you're not stagnant, you're just
Well,
keep moving and keep the
I think
grind going.
I think the advantage I've had is I've got a big social media following now. But bear in mind that everything only kicked off for me in 2019. And my first UK tour was supposed to happen in 2020, literally March 2020.
So the best time.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
best time.
So it all got cancelled. And I'd managed to get myself set up in this room, which I've been changing around various points. I managed to get myself a decent audio interface, a decent laptop, webcam, and all that kind of stuff. So I was pretty much set up to just jump into doing live streaming.
Mhm.
And because my background's in media production, and I was teaching media production at a college, oh, sorry, I'm gonna scratch my
No, you're
nose.
good, man. You're good.
That actually, I think I was quite well placed to embrace all of that and just jump on it and start doing stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of artists who hadn't put much focus on social media then found that they weren't able to reach as many people because their focus, obviously, quite in the past, had been
Yeah.
on live touring. So there's a lot of people, a lot of people I respected and looked up to who were talking about jacking it all in because they couldn't afford to make ends meet. And
Yeah. No, and so you were like you were in the prime position to pull together what you knew
yeah,
and also your hobby. When those two things, not your hobby, your art.
yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
but
it was essentially a hobby.
well,
Now it's my
yeah, I'm thinking before the big boom. You're just like
yeah,
you put them together, and it's just open the floodgates.
yeah. Now I've got to find a new hobby.
Yeah, it could be collecting YouTube plaques apparently. So that's awesome. Shout out to you. You know, the your version of always look on the bright side is on repeat
Oh,
on my devices everywhere. Just want you to know that before we go further down this, I have to let it be known. So thank you for that because we just did the reaction to the life of Brian.
oh, some of it doesn't age well.
No, I mean, or it ages too well. It's still very current.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
hmm.
Um, some of it doesn't age well. And this is the thing. Monty Python, massive influence on mine. I just wish that John Cleese wasn't shitting the bed quite so much at the moment, because it's quite depressing to see
Yeah.
one of your heroes kind of just
Yeah, but it's still for you because you have to look at it through that time
yeah,
frame.
absolutely, absolutely.
Have to.
I think actually we're in quite a privileged position where we can kind of sit and go, do you know what? I tried showing that film to a bunch of my students one Easter,
How did that
and
go?
didn't get it at all. They didn't get it at all. It wasn't relevant to them at all. They didn't get it. They didn't understand it. They were bored. But
What?
but this is the thing: is that it's something that is, you know, that film. I don't remember the first time I watched it. We used to constantly quote it when I was at school.
Hmm.
So you only watched it for the first time recently?
Yeah, like I've seen my history teacher Um, my history teacher over here brought in high school made us watch um, the Holy Grail,
Oh
Monty
yeah.
Python and the Holy Grail. It was his favorite movie, and that opened the door to Life of Brian. But I was too young to see that movie to get you. I think you really have to live your life and experience a lot of things, especially for
I don't
us
know.
over here.
It's how I learned about a lot. It's pretty much how I learned about religion.
Yeah, yeah, like
Because I'm not from a religious family background at all. They kind of hoisted it on us in school, but other than kind of making us sing hymns, I didn't really. But Monty Python
yeah,
was essentially what taught me
introduction.
about. Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
like in Life
yeah.
of Brian.
I love it. So for you, it's like a documentary. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I get it now. Get it now. But no, it was just a great movie. Yeah, we just recently saw it. I recently like invested my mind into watching the full movie with Spencer, and I'm just like, man, this is brilliant. Whoever wrote this was just
well,
different level.
it used to be one of those things that if you were at a party and you didn't know people there, you could start quoting Python. You could start quoting the Life of Brian, and
Yeah,
it would be a common kind of thing that
like an
you could talk
icebreaker.
about. Yeah, exactly. Um, you could say nobody expects a Spanish Inquisition, and people would know what you were talking
It's-
about.
Someone just yells, "The Spanish Inquisition!" Yeah,
um, and it was a similar thing was The Simpsons. I remember kind of sitting and just literally Homer quoting people when we were drunk at
yeah,
parties.
yeah.
Had whole friendships based around that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, there's friendships based on a lot less. So, but if I can pick a little more of your brain, good sir. I don't know how long you have. So,
I'm good. I'm good for as long as you need.
all right, man. Well, there's two things I've written down. I'm dying to know. Um, what do you usually watch on YouTube that's not reaction based? What are your rabbit holes? Because I was introduced to you on YouTube, and I'm like, what does he watch on YouTube? What?
Um, so yeah, Nerdforge is one that we've discovered recently. They kind of build dioramas and various things, and it's quite interesting. Um, Watching them kind of build projects and stuff. And the other one that the other YouTube person my partner's is Rachel Maxey, who
Okay.
decorates her house and does all kinds of weird, interesting stuff. Um, and again, I think as a cosplayer, has a cosplay background, and so builds kind of masks and kind of
So
costumes
it
and things like
plays
that.
into like the steampunk world.
Maybe potentially. I'm not a builder. I don't make stuff. I can't.
Oh,
I was always rubbish at that stuff. But
no.
Sarah, my partner's really good at it, and I think
Well,
that's quite inspirational. I quite like seeing kind of the setups they've got.
yeah.
They kind of,
Did you set up the background of your place?
so until last week, my desk was in a different corner, and I was filming into that corner of the room. Um, and I had to pull everything out every time and put it all away again. But since I've switched my desk around, I now can leave everything set up,
Very
and
nice.
it just makes such a difference
Oh yeah.
in terms of what I'm doing. Um, Although I've got the desk across the middle of the room, and it feels like I've got less space. I think I've actually given
Yeah. No,
myself.
I'm in the same position. Like my desk, I put so much time into building this eclectic, ridiculous shelf that I'm like, how do I? And then I sit on my desk. I'm like, I can't see it. This is
Yeah,
ridiculous. What am I doing?
it's finding the best optimal position for everything as well. And in fact, that card's in the way of the Piccadilly Circus sign at the moment, so I better move that up there.
Ah.
I'll pop it.
Well,
There
I
we go.
like the I do fancy the T-Rex behind you, man. I have lots of those. So,
So yeah, I've also got my my dinosaur embryos are up there as well.
smart.
Um,
Smart.
yeah, you got to keep them
No.
close.
You have to do it, man. I think I've stepped on that kind of T-Rex so many times at night. So It's nice to see one that's still there.
we're a bit we're a bit Jurassic Park
Uh,
mad in
it's
this
fine.
house. So.
I am I am just kind of sort of diving into dinosaurs again. It's just nice because I'm like living through my son. It's like, oh, he likes dinosaurs and sharks and cars. I'm like, hell yeah. And like I can buy him all the clothes that I really want. It's like, I wish
our
I could
next
get away with this
our
stuff.
next door neighbour was really excited when his young boy was old enough to get into Star Wars. So
Yes.
there's right. I'm buying you all the Star Wars stuff now.
All the stuff that I wanted, you're gonna have, but it's not necessarily for you. But yeah, no, it's
Over Christmas, we've been with some friends who've got kids. They've got young kids. They've got a 3 and a 5 year old.
wow.
And because we don't have children, we don't get the joy of children's TV. So over the couple of days of Christmas, we were being introduced to all kinds of shows on Netflix and Disney Channel.
And it's
Some much better than others.
yeah, it's wild, man. Like my son will find it. He's old enough to go on to YouTube and search videos, and there's this cult out there called Coco Melon,
Now,
and
here's the interesting thing about Coco Melon. Um, my producer, my producer Lee, got a job for Coco Melon. I don't think he's still doing it, but basically remixing or kind of mixing down versions of all their nursery rhymes in all the different languages. So they would get the audio file sent through.
God,
They'd have to make it, then kind of like mix it and make it sound right with the track. And there's just so much work for that.
I just it's almost it's appalling how uh, anything apparently anything can be a nursery rhyme that you grown up and loved, you know, and it's just I hear that like do and I'm like fuck,
That's
like
probably a lot of that's Lee's fault.
I know now I know oh now I know, and I'm just like because I think it started on YouTube too,
Yeah.
you know, as a dad I'm like what are you looking at, dude, and I pick it up and I'm like hundreds of millions, and I'm like I'm in the wrong profession.
But
I'm in
this is the thing,
the
and this is the thing that had been, paying his mortgage was, mixing these stupid songs in the various languages down because it was just so much of them, so many of them. I remember also he brought one of the videos to me at one point and said, "So for the new song, um, I just want to kind of you to listen to this. This is the kind of thing I'm thinking." And he played me one of these kind of Coco Melon videos. I was like, actually, do you know what? That works.
yeah, and that's I think that's the drive as a parent, and I listen to it I'm like oh god I know this song but I don't know this song, and it just makes you so mad. It's infuriatingly brilliant. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it is. But well, I applaud you for staving off that for so long. It's very
It's
very well done.
it's nice to dip into it every so often and then be able to.
Leave it.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Your best friends' kids are the best kind of kids to have because they go home.
That's exactly what I don't want kids is about. That's one of
I
those
love
songs.
the song too. I'm like, as a parent, I'm like, I respect your decision, good sir. I respect your decision. You
That's one of
know?
the ones. That's one of the ones that I initially I'd thought of that as being kind of a bit of call and repeat, sing along kind of thing at gigs. But I feel guilty encouraging an audience who may have children to sing along to "I Don't Want Kids." It just-
Oh, I do. I do happily. I do happily. Because there was if there isn't a parent out there that can understand where you're coming from, what are they on? You know? So yeah, I get that. It's a great song. I sing along to that. I was like, oh,
Okay.
this is a good one. Just my time and place of when I sing it, obviously, but it's great, man. Um, so kind of wrapping up some stuff, man. What would, and this is one of those, I had some just questions kind of get to know you, but I feel like this, I know you, man. I get you. I understand you. You are your music, and I love it, man. I love it because sometimes I've met artists that, you assume they're this way because of their music, and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden
but
they're,
you know,
yeah,
I have a stage persona. I have a very much a stage persona that is a kind of an online persona and that kind of thing as well. But it is an extension of who I
yeah,
am. So I'm not, I'm not. I put on a posher voice than I actually have. I don't speak with the posh accent that I talk in and sing in on my songs. Um,
got it. But
and
yeah,
but there's that part of
yeah,
it is part of me. So it's
yeah. No, it's good. It's not like you're like Little John and then you only read Shakespeare. It's like
yeah.
that'd be different. In my world. But uh, if you could list your top three comedians, what would they be? Who would they be? Top three, just three.
Oh, okay. Um, oh, so I Stuart Lee would definitely be one of them. Have you
Okay.
come across Stuart Lee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love his smugness. I love how, but just his ability to kind of pick apart um, uh, jokes and kind of like turn them round and twist them and play audiences and that kind of thing. I find really interesting. So definitely Stuart Lee. Um, I'm trying to think of
There's
other
loads.
comedians. Um,
There's
I,
just loads.
oh God, there's so many that I like. There's so many comedians that I really like. There's a lot who I did like who I don't like anymore,
Yeah.
um, because they haven't kind of progressed on and moved on with the times. Um, who have we watched recently? Oh, I've got to say Joe Lycett as well.
Okay.
Have you never come across Joe Lycett?
No, but I will now. I'm going to put that on the list. Man,
Definitely
I
Joe
didn't know I was
Lycett.
going to get a list for interview. Like, I got a bunch of homework to do, man.
So Joe Lycett, yeah, definitely Joe Lycett. Um, he's
What
and
is that?
he can get quite political, and
Okay.
he's had some glorious moments. You have to look into him because he's a
I don't know
um,
why that name sounds so familiar, though, to me.
uh, well, there was recently he was on being interviewed on the BBC News and was really sarcastic to
Mm.
who was the I can't remember her name now. Our last
Good.
oh God, what's a bloody name? Yeah, Boris Johnson, and then you had Liz Truss. Liz Truss was being interviewed on a TV show, and he was really kind of
Let me see.
sarcastic about stuff.
Because I feel like that is someone we know. I don't know why, man. But let me
Yeah,
just.
you would probably recognise if
Oh,
you've been watching a lot of
yes.
British comedy. Yeah, so Joe Lycett.
Yes.
Um,
He is one of those. We reacted to him, but he got blocked.
he got blocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Our videos, you'd be
Ah, right,
astounded.
okay.
You'd be astounded how many don't ever see the light of
Well,
day.
this is the thing. This is one of the things I need to ask you about. Kind of when we finish
Yeah.
recording is those kind of licenses and that kind of thing because it'd be interesting to know. So yeah, so we've got Stuart Lee, Joe Lycett, and let's go back in time. Let's say Victoria Wood.
Okay.
Um, have you come
I'm
across Victoria Wood at all?
I'm about to write it down right
Yeah.
now.
So Victoria Wood, actually she died a couple of years ago actually, but
Really?
she was a British institution, and she wrote songs. She was a script writer, but also did stand up as well.
Oh wow.
Have a look at the Ballad of Frida and Barry. Would be the one
The
to the Ballad of
ballad.
Frida and
All right. Got it.
that's her classic one.
All right.
I don't know how it would translate necessarily because there's lots of very northern jokes in
Well,
it.
I will.
Very,
I
very
will. I
UK
will
northern
try
jokes.
to.
Be interesting to see how that translates over in the States, though.
It would be very interesting. Like I said, we're because of this journey that we found ourselves in. Um, we're starting to get more and
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
less stuff flies over our heads now. But the geographical comedy, like the um, if I could say geographical comedy, like
Yeah.
the
I think there's definitely comedy that works if you understand the place where people are from.
yes,
So here in the UK, I'm a southerner. I live down south, but I kind of understand Yorkshire in a certain way, and then you have kind of Lancashire in a certain way, and there's humour and um, personality and things like that that you associate with those kind of places.
got it.
Very much like Scott. If you look at Scottish comedy, definitely has its own um,
That like
bite,
yep, yep.
um,
Would it
and
be
also
would it be transferable here, like north southern kind of thing?
this it'd be interesting to see your takes on it. It'd be interesting to see the kind of takes you've watched Frankie Boyle, haven't you?
Yes,
So that's
yes,
very kind of Scottish Glaswegian humour.
yes. And
Um,
the what I lied to you. They're
yeah,
always bring that up.
yeah,
That's always the contention between the two people. It's always brought up, and I'm like, it's a thing,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
hilarious.
And then you've got someone like Rod Gilbert, who's very, very what you'd say quintessentially Welsh
Yes,
as a comedian. So yeah,
and we just found him not too long ago.
yeah,
So it's great. Like you guys have such free comedy over there, and that's something that the world needs, and it's unfortunately being stifled.
yeah.
I feel like for the most part, everyone is walking on eggshells, and when your profession is the profession of laughter and good vibes, to have to walk on eggshells, it really limits.
I agree with that to some extent, but I also think there is an unwritten rule in comedy that you don't punch down.
Yeah,
And
yes,
actually, if you start making fun of communities and kind of people who are a minority or kind of in a less privileged position than yourself, then you just come across as a dick.
yeah, yeah. Well, I always feel like you got to at least have that self-deprecating humor first and foremost. Like that. Like I definitely understand that. But I definitely, yeah. There's some people out there that are trying to do it, and it sounds more like a weird effed up TED talk, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not the place to do it.
Well,
No,
because
the
I also
road.
think you could there's nothing you can't joke about as long as it's funny. I
Yes,
think that's the other thing. When comedians make an unfunny joke or say something off the cuff, rather than turn around and go, "Do you know what? My bad. I'm a bit of a dick. I'm sorry for that. I was testing
yep,
a boundary. I'm not going to say it again." I have respect for people that do that,
yeah,
and also that when you look back at their kind of older stuff from like 15 years ago, you kind of go,
it's the same.
that doesn't stand the test of time. Really, they go, yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
my
yeah.
bad. But there's so many people who refuse to do that, and there's so many
I
people
I don't
who
know.
who who will not budge on it, and that always makes me lose respect for them a little bit.
That's a tough one too, because in their mind, I would assume it's like their art, like they're
Yeah,
and if they that's a tough one, because I feel like if you're asking the artist to apologize for a masterpiece he's created,
they're not asking. I don't think anybody's necessarily asking for an apology, but just an acknowledgement of actually
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
bit
like
dated
so,
now. It's
yeah,
like it's like I'd never actually read the lyrics to the Rolling Stones song Brown Sugar,
and then you,
and then you kind of read the lyrics and you go, what the fuck is this? Actually, no, it's fine. We're singing this. I'm not singing along to that. I've started doing that actually quite a lot when I'm looking at cover songs to do. You kind of look at lyrics and you go, nope, not singing that one.
Yeah. Like, oh,
I
this
can
classic.
appreciate it for a song for its time, but I am not singing that song.
Yeah. That's actually a great point. Is I was like, how do you pick what songs to cover? How do you come up with what's next?
Do you know what? They at the moment they just have been coming to me, but I'm actually testing out a new thing with my patrons
Ooh,
in the next few months, which is going to be where I do a live thing where I get a song suggestion. I look at the lyrics, so we read through the lyrics of it, then have a listen to the track, and then try and play it, and then try and get a listenable playthrough of it by the end of the video, which then potentially could turn into a proper song
cover.
video at the end of it. Um,
That's genius. It's like a
so
walkthrough. It's like a
yeah,
behind the scenes of your process.
exactly. And also it gives the opportunity for then my patrons to suggest a song, and for me to go,
Yeah.
okay, well I'll try it out even if I don't know it, and then to be able to say, no, I'm not doing that one. Or yeah, no, let's give this one a go. Because actually,
Yeah.
part of it might be kind of reading through the lyrics and going, "Oh shit,
Yeah. Yeah. Like maybe not. Let's not touch
maybe we'll
this.
leave this out." But still do a little cover of it because people have asked to hear it. But
Yeah.
but making that acknowledgement of okay, this is not okay.
Yeah.
One of the classic songs like that was there's a song called "Leaning on a Lamppost." Have you ever come across that song?
Oh, what?
Um,
Leaning on a lamppost.
Leaning on a lamppost at a corner of the street, in case a certain little lady comes by. It's a classic British song. It's a classic song, but it's essentially about stalking someone.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna go. This is
It's like
really
it's
weird.
like it's kind of creepy. Kind of
Yeah,
creepy. Like that. It's like the what's that? Oh my god. The that Christmas song that's under scrutiny. The It's
Fairy
cold
Tale of New York.
outside.
Oh, baby, it's cold outside. I was going to say Fairy Tale of New York because
No,
of,
no.
of the slur that he uses in that. But baby, it's cold outside. Do you know what? I know plenty of people are happy singing that song,
Yeah,
and which is fine. But we can acknowledge that there are problems with it, and that acknowledgement, I think, is the important part of it.
yeah. Just
We can
acknowledge it.
we can all sit and laugh at that, at the
Yeah,
fact that isn't it weird how creepy we all were back in the
yeah.
50s or
Like
whatever.
this is something that your grandfather's saying to your grandmother. Like,
And it was romantic at that
and
point.
it was romantic. You're like, at least they didn't use a club.
Welcome
Like
to
I don't know, man.
society.
Just man, but it's
So yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
so I think there's that acknowledgement. I think is important, whether or not because I think people can still choose to carry on watching things,
yeah,
um, and can still get the enjoyment out of those things that they've always got. But while also kind of going, do you know what? Yeah, but it's pretty problematic, isn't it? There's some problems with that now, and I recognise what those problems. The really interesting one is Molly Ringwald um, wrote a whole thing about showing the Breakfast Club to her daughter, and they sat and watched it. And there's the bit in it where the guy goes underneath the table and basically is sexually assaulting her, and her daughter's just sitting there going, what are you making me watch? What films were you making back in the 80s?
yeah,
And the whole thing of the girl being changed at the end to look more acceptable to what
yeah.
society, and you kind of go, oh god, so many people love that film, but actually it's so wrong in so many
Across
different
the board.
ways. Well, the other one, John Hughes, is quite a record of it, hasn't he? Do you remember Weird Science?
What? Yeah, I
Weird
do, and
Child.
also, yeah, Weird Science
Those
was up there
those
too.
those boys were supposed to be 15.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
kind of go, what?
Like it's like what? And also like Grease too. It's terrible like message at the end. Great
Yeah.
movie, terrible. Great movie, terrible movie.
Great. One of our favourite things to do over Christmas is to have. Have you ever come across the film Love Actually?
Love Actually, yes, I've seen it with
Yeah,
my wife.
people talk about it being this romantic. It's a horrible film. When you start to break it down, you start kind of looking at all the characters in it. They're all terrible. They're all awful. And we have an annual hate watch of it where we just and kind of pick it apart and rip it apart. But it's
You-
part of the festive season.
I love that. I love that. Make it your own. Make your own holiday movie. Holiday movie tradition. Because some of the stuff, man, like you brought up before, it's just hyper commercialized, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
it leaves you exhausted. It leaves you exhausted. They like I feel like the holiday season is trying to be crammed down your throat at one moment. It's like
yeah.
there's no easing into it. It's just like buy right
Oh,
now.
well, I guess you've got off the back of Thanksgiving as well, haven't you?
Yep.
Which is a whole different ball
Whole
game
different.
in
Yep.
terms of picking apart our past and thinking about the thing impact we've had on
Yeah. Yeah.
society.
It's
That's a
just like,
conversation for a different day,
I was
though.
like, yeah, yeah. I love it though. It's just but it's one of those things, especially Thanksgiving, you're just like, do we want to talk about it? Like we understand. Like it's a day you give thanks. That's very important. But are we just not going to talk about that day that many years ago? Like, maybe not. People
That's me.
just
Well, you know what holiday is celebrated um, the most across the world in more countries than anywhere else, don't you?
which is that?
Independence from Britain.
Oh yeah.
Celebrated in
Yeah,
more
that's
countries across the world than any other festival.
yeah. I mean, they may not be. They definitely are in different days, but definitely across the board, you have a point there. You had a point there. You have a very good point. I never thought about that. Oh shit, that's great. Never thought about it. That's a brilliant point.
I
Wow.
think there's something like kind of there's at least one every single week of the year.
Independence Day from oh man.
We do not have a good past in this country,
No, yeah. Yeah.
and nobody talks
It's,
about it in schools at all.
yeah, it's it's
Which
it's
is
it's I never thought about that. Thank you. Thank you
there we
for
go.
that. That
I'll
is
leave you with that one.
that is going to be living rent free in my head forever. Now I'm going to carry that every time we go to Embrace the Suck 21. I'm like, Spencer, did you know? You definitely have to. I want to get Spencer to reach
This
out
is
to
the
you.
thing. I'm going to put a disclaimer on that. I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure that it is the one that's celebrated by more countries across. I think as a national holiday, I think more people have it as a national holiday than any other.
Oh yeah. No, I
Um,
I, I agree with that 100%. You know, like you see the map of what it used to be, and I was like, So the whole you guys wanted the whole thing. That's it. But I get it. I think that claim is very valid. I love that.
yeah.
Thank you for leaving that in my head.
Oh, we've just
Um,
been watching it. We've started watching the whole Harry and Meghan documentary on Netflix as well, and they go into some of that on there. It's quite interesting.
like so it was funny because my wife watches the Crown, right?
Yeah,
And she's like, "Should I watch that?" And then like the Meghan and Harry documentary, I was like, you have to, because why not? I feel like it's
The
both
Crown
sides
is
of the
one of
coin.
the Crown is one of the biggest PR things that the royal family have ever had. I think it's yeah, they're quite happy with that because it sells this whole kind of glowing rose tinted view of our royal family.
Mm,
Um, I think we should just you know
yeah,
put them in a nice kind of council house or a flat somewhere,
yeah,
and let them live out the rest of their days. They can be kept, but let's do away with the whole monarchy
it's
thing.
just like it's humanize them.
I used to think it was quite a nice quaint thing that we had in this country and that people enjoyed it in a slightly ironic kind of way, but people don't. People really love it and are really really kind of royalist and really really
Yeah,
you don't take the mickey out of the royal family here in the UK.
no, and that's something as me over here, I couldn't. It's hard to wrap your head around the magnitude. of it
But
all.
the thing is, I've never realised how massive a thing it was. Really, I mean, it's all very pageantry, and we have these events and all that kind of thing. But I thought we were all on the same page with it, and that it all seemed a bit silly. But the ridiculousness of the Queen's funeral just became, it was just a circus. And we were on a train, kind of watching the queue, because we go to train across to get down to various places. In fact, we were heading down to Brighton, and our train goes across the River Thames, and you can literally see the queue going all the way kind of round and up the river,
Wow,
and people were in that queue for what, 24 hours or whatever, and you
that's
just kind of
crazy.
go, what?
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't personally. I don't know. I know if our presidents pass, I'm not going to be in a I mean, granted, not comparable. She was a thing for 90 something, my whole life, a lot of people's whole life.
Yeah.
You
Well, we don't
know,
we don't remember. No, nobody particularly remembers a time before us. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, she was before time herself. Just like it's crazy. It's crazy because for when you talk about the royalty over there to the U.S. person, and then you say, "Oh no, I know they had a queen, or now it's a king, but I know they had a queen." And then you list how many presidents she lived through, and
yeah,
it's just like a list, and that's when our minds are like
yeah,
blown.
yeah.
So I don't know how we got on the subject of
I don't know.
queen, but yeah,
Then we started
great.
talking about colonialism and
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, Thanksgiving.
British independence. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is yeah, that's perfect. It always comes down to that.
Yeah.
It always comes back to that.
Always comes back to colonialism in Britain. That's
Always.
what.
Um. So before we head off, man. I mean, we've been on an hour 14. Um. Real quick, what what do you want to say? What do you want to plug? If I want to give you this time to at least say your piece on what you got going on.
So I've got a live show this evening. Well, this is going out later, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually be trying to do live YouTube shows every month now,
Ooh.
with special guests on them. So if this goes all right this evening, then that's going to be potentially something that I'm all set up for now. Inviting guests on and playing some songs, having a bit of chat. I've got UK shows coming up in February and March. So head over to tombywild.com to have a look at that. Hopefully, I'll have a new album out by the summer. That's the aim.
That's awesome.
Also, if there's people watching in the States, I would like to come and play a gig in the States at some point, or come and do some shows in the States, but it's just so fucking expensive to get a visa for that.
Yeah.
And actually, I find it hard enough booking a tour in the UK. It's hard enough booking a tour in the country I live in, let alone in the US. So if there's anybody watching who does promote or book tours or knows anyone that does, I'm all open to that. Also in Canada and Australia as well.
There you go. There you go. Well, I'm going to get you in touch with Spencer, and you guys can gallivant across the country.
Yeah, yeah. My big problem as well is that I don't drive, and that is quite limiting. So
Oh
I do
well.
public transport everywhere.
Yeah. No,
Um,
we would have to drive you. Don't worry about it. For a U.S. thing, we got you on our side. You know. But yeah, man. Thank you for your time.
no
Um,
problem at all. It's been my
and
pleasure.
I definitely I want to tell all of our people on this Areas in the Nation channel, thank you for spending your time with us. We appreciate it. And everyone go to Thomas Benjamin Wild Esquire's social everything. Bombard him with your patronage. But all right, guys. Much love. Thank you again for hopping on, man.
No
All
worries,
right,
man.
all right. So until then, later, guys.